Hey everyone! If you enjoyed this video, the full version is available on Patreon. I'll be uploading all my content there going forward.
Chapter 1. I've been transported to another world, and to the Dragon Ball world I've always dreamed of. Vegeta, aren't you going to save Gran? He's a high-ranking scion, yet he got ambushed by a native and even had his tail cut off. Why bother saving this trash? But... humph, if you utter another word, you might as well stay here too. Soon, 7 or 8 small spaceships rose into the air amidst flames and entered space shortly afterward. On the surface of this planet lies a child, about 6 years old, with a chubby, short face and a robust build. However, he was covered in wounds, and his tail had been cut off, making him look seriously injured. Hiss! Gran suddenly awoke from his coma, his brain flooded with information. The excruciating pain in his brain caused him to groan, and then he lost consciousness again. Just before he completely lost consciousness, a thought flashed through Gran's mind: I've time traveled. The sky went dark and then brightened, and then went dark again. During this time, Gran's past life soul was also constantly devouring the soul of the original owner of the body, and at the same time, his dimension was undergoing strange changes. However, Grant was unaware of this, and after 3 days, he finally woke up again. Ha 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 ha! I've time traveled! Gran lay on the ground, finally sorting out the memories in his mind, and he smiled happily. Dragon Ball was his favorite anime, and he never expected to wake up one day to find himself transported to this world. He didn't discover any system or cheat codes during his transmigration, but he did become a scion. His scion identity and memories of his past life, that's his biggest advantage. It's important to know that the scion bloodline is extremely overpowered. If they transform into Super Saiyan form, their power can increase 50 times. Transforming into Super Saiyan 2 mode increases power by 100 times. What if it transformed into Super Saiyan 5, Super Saiyan 6, or even Super Saiyan 10? Although the highest Super Saiyan form depicted in the anime is only Super Saiyan 4, who really knows that Super Saiyan 4 is the limit for Saions? Limits are meant to be broken, and Gran doesn't believe that Super Saiyan 4 is the limit for Saions. Besides, there's also the path to godhood. With Saiyan transformation and godhood combined, defeating gods of destruction and even the Omni King might not be a dream at all. Just as Grant was fantasizing about his future glory, he overlooked something very important. It hurts. The excruciating pain of his severe injury brought Gran back to reality from his reverie. It is now the year 737 of AJ. Planet Vegeta has just exploded, and Frieza has left the Vegeta team behind. Gran is also a member of Vegeta's team. But 3 days ago, during a mission, he was ambushed by the planet's natives and had his tail cut off. As a member of Vegeta's team, Gran was naturally a high-level scion. But precisely because he was a superior scion, he was ambushed by a native and had his tail cut off. In Vegeta's mind, this was an insult to the scion race. So Vegeta showed no mercy and directly destroyed Gran's spaceship, leaving him to fend for himself on that planet. It hurts. Vegeta was really ruthless in the early stages of the story. Grant lay on the ground, his face deathly pale from the excruciating pain in his body. He wasn't surprised at all that Vegeta could be so ruthless to his own people. It's important to know that in the early stages of the story, Vegeta was already a little devil. For example, when Vegeta and Nappa invaded Earth, Nappa was severely injured by Goku, and Nappa asked Vegeta to save him. However, Vegeta considered his worthless companions a burden, and then personally killed Nappa. Damn you, you perennial runner-up! I'll beat you until you beg for mercy. Grant's expression grew increasingly grim. In addition to his severe physical injuries, he also felt extremely hungry. By this time, he had been unconscious for 3 days and had not eaten or drunk anything for 3 days, leaving him completely immobile. Forget about seeking revenge on Vegeta later, he probably wouldn't even last an hour now. The situation is extremely critical. Am I going to die right after I transmigrated here? Despite the excruciating pain, Grant was brainstorming. The native inhabitants of this planet have been completely wiped out, there's no way anyone can save him. Even if the spaceship is destroyed, it cannot escape this planet. Using Dragon Balls? Using Senzu Beans? That's even more unrealistic. Damn it! Gran was now unable to move any part of his body except his mouth, and blood continued to spurt from his mouth. In this situation, what other way is there to survive? Etc. It is now the year 737 of AJ, shortly after planet Vegeta exploded. A glint of inspiration flashed through Gran's mind. Got it. If there's anyone who could save his life, it's him. Vivi. Grant weakly called Weiss's name toward the sky. Right. Only the angels of the 7th universe can save him in this situation. According to the Dragon Ball Super storyline, Beerus instructed King Vegeta to find him the best pillow in the universe. As a result, King Vegeta kept the best pillow for himself and gave the second best pillow to Beerus. This angered Beerus, and Frieza ordered the destruction of planet Vegeta. Gran also knew that Beerus hated scions at this time. But it is now the year 737 of AJ, shortly after planet Vegeta exploded, which means Beerus has only recently entered a deep sleep. Therefore, Gran has absolutely no need to worry about summoning Beerus. As for whether Weiss will be summoned by him, well, he should be able to. Mr. Vess, I have the most delicious food in the entire universe here, would you like to try it? Gran called out weakly. Knowing Weiss as he did, Weiss shouldn't have missed out on such a delicacy. Weiss, you absolutely have to come. Chapter 2. In a vast, distant space, there exists an inverted pyramid world, where every corner exudes an aura of destruction. A refined-looking man stood by the lake. He was tall, with light blue skin and long, curly white hair. A divine halo floated around his neck, making him appear radiant and holy. There was a cup hovering nearby, and a fish that looked like a loach was swimming inside the cup. A loach and an angel, they both looked towards the palace in the distance. The prophetic fish leaned against the edge of the cup, speechless, and said, "Not many planets have been destroyed, and Lord Beerus has fallen into a deep sleep again. What a lazybones!" As a member of the God of Destruction realm, the prophecy fish naturally knew Beerus's strength. Years ago, the gods of destruction from the 12 universes fought once because of the Omni King's game of hide and seek. It was less of a battle and more of a beating by Beerus from the other 11 gods of destruction, but in the end, Beerus single-handedly defeated all the other gods of destruction. In the end, the only ones who were able to leave with dignity, besides Beerus's own brother Champa, were Quitra, the rat. That battle earned Beerus the title of strongest god of destruction. Unfortunately, despite his immense power, this god of destruction is so lazy that his universe is ranked second to last. This really makes me predict that the fish will be too ashamed to show its face. Oh ho ho! Whis, holding a long staff in his right hand, chuckled, "If Lord Beerus hears you call him a lazybones, you're finished." His smile shattered his sacred angelic image, turning him into a comical figure. "Don't worry, Lord Beerus is asleep, and he can't hear you." "How do you know I won't tell Lord Beerus when he wakes up?" "Weiss, you." The prophetic fish's eyes widened, and it asked nervously, "You wouldn't actually tell Lord Beerus, would you?" Weiss covered his mouth and chuckled, "That depends on whether you know what's good for you." The prophecy fish was speechless. This master and servant couple is truly something else, one loves to sleep in late, and the other loves to eat delicious food. To describe them negatively, they'd be gluttonous and lazy. In fact, the angel before it was even more terrifying. Beerus is the strongest god of destruction, yet he couldn't even withstand a single attack from Whis. Because all of Beerus's abilities were taught by Whis, Whis's true identity is actually Beerus's master. As for Weiss's true strength, no one knows. All right, I'll give you all the delicacies I've been saving for a long time, but you can't tell Lord Beerus. The fish seemed to be in a lot of pain. Weiss licked his lips, his eyes filled with anticipation. He was going to eat something delicious again. Sudden. A weak voice came, 6, Whis. Weiss was an angel of the universe, and with his level of attainment, he naturally heard someone calling his name, but he ignored it. He and Beerus left behind many legends in Universe 7, so it's normal for people to call out his name. As was his usual habit, he would automatically ignore these sounds. However, the next second, Mr. Whis, I have the most delicious food in the entire universe here, would you like to try some? The words that came from behind made Weiss's eyes light up with fervor. Weiss, what's wrong? The prophetic fish retrieved its long-treasured delicacy from another dimension, and suddenly noticed that something was wrong with Weiss. Why does Weiss look so excited? Wrong. When this guy makes that face, he's definitely found something delicious. The prophetic fish reacted instantly. Just as it was about to speak, Weiss beside it transformed into a streak of 7-colored light and shot into the sky. He also left behind a sentence. My going out evens out with what you just said about insulting Lord Beerus. Don't tell Lord Beerus anything. Damn it, they went out to eat something delicious and didn't take me with them. The prophetic fish cursed and swore at the sky. It had just finished cursing when it suddenly fell into a deep sleep, for no apparent reason. If Weiss hadn't left, he would have been very surprised, because this was the state in which the prophetic fish began to predict things. On the other side, Grant lay on the ground. 2 minutes had passed since his first call, but Wes still hadn't come. Could it be that Weiss really didn't hear it? Gran coughed up another mouthful of blood. According to the anime, Whis taking Beerus from the god of destruction to King Kai's north should normally take 26 minutes. However, at Beerus's insistence, Whis arrived at North Chaos from the god of destruction in just 3 minutes. Same. Given Evisa's craving for good food, he shouldn't have been here for more than 3 minutes. As time passed, another 10 minutes went by, and Gran's breathing grew weaker and weaker. Damn it! Am I going to die? I'm so unwilling to accept this. I haven't even punched Beerus, kicked him, or done anything to him yet. Sudden. Punch Lord Beerus? Kick him all over. A voice entered Gran's ears, and his pupils contracted sharply. Was it him? Grant lay on the ground, trying to turn his head, but he was already unable to move. Soon, a figure walked over and came into his view. He had light blue skin, white hair, and was holding a staff. She's an angel. Looking at his face again, it really is Weiss. Weiss really heard me, and he even came here in person. At that moment, Grant forgot the pain in his body, he was overjoyed. Weiss looked down at the child on the ground, and his brows furrowed. Scion? That shouldn't be the case. Weren't the Scion race destroyed by Frisia along with planet Vegeta? How could any Scions have survived? Could it be that Frisia disobeyed Lord Beerus's orders? Weiss shook his head again. Whether Frisia disobeyed Lord Beerus's orders or not is none of his business. He is an angel whose duty is to serve and teach the god of destruction. He needs to remain neutral and cannot participate in any battles in the universe. Therefore, even if Whis knew that Frisia had disobeyed Beerus's orders, he would not react in any way. Only. You just said you punched Lord Beerus, but who did you kick again? A mocking glint flashed in Weiss's eyes. Unsurprisingly, this little guy should be saying that he punched Beerus and kicked the Omni King. Good heavens, how dare a mere Karami say such a thing? Grant desperately wanted to ask if he could save him first, but he simply didn't have the strength to speak. Oh dear, I forgot you're about to die. Although Weiss said that, he had no intention of treating Gran. Grant was extremely anxious. That shouldn't be the case. Weiss is already here, given his love for food, why hasn't he saved him yet? I don't know how you survived Frisia, little guy, and I also don't know how you knew I like food. Weiss, staff in hand, seemed to have guessed what Gran was thinking. He looked down at him and said, "You lured me here, probably hoping I'd save you, but you've got the wrong idea. Why would anyone think an angel would inexplicably save a complete stranger just for some food? Angels are neutral, they only serve the god of destruction, and they will not easily interfere with anything in the universe. Save a stranger's child? Don't be silly. If it were someone he knew, it would be fine, but he didn't recognize the child on the ground, and the other person was a scion whom Beerus hated. Weiss loves food, which is why he's here. But he would never save Gran, this scion, because of the delicious food." Gran had no idea what Whis was thinking, otherwise he would have said, "You weren't like this in Dragon Ball Super. Bulma just said there was good food on Earth, and you happily ran over to help this and that. Why can't you even save me when I tell you there's delicious food?" Upon hearing Weiss's words, Gran's mood instantly shifted from excitement to despair. "I thought Weiss had come to save me, but who would have thought it would turn out like this? Is fate truly determined to destroy me?" Gran's breath suddenly weakened to the point of no return, and he slowly closed his eyes, a prelude to death. Weiss looked down at him. This little guy was quite clever, even injured to this extent, he still managed to come up with a way to lure him over. What a pity! Angels cannot interfere in the affairs of the universe at will, he cannot save this little one. Weiss was about to turn and leave. Sudden! A powerful aura erupted from Gran, accompanied by dimensional fluctuations. Something seems off about this little guy. Weiss looked down at Grant, his gaze suddenly turning serious. Chapter 3. Gran originally belonged to the world of the Dragon Ball creator god, his dimension was exactly the same as the Dragon Ball creator gods. At this moment, Gran, who was on the verge of death, finally saw the soul of the original owner of his body collapse, and Gran completely devoured it. Buzz! A faint dimensional pressure erupted from Gran's body, and his power instantly surged to 200 times its original level. How is this possible? Weiss's eyes widened. His surprise wasn't due to Gran's sudden increase in power, the increase in Gran's power was still too weak for him. He would be surprised because Gran's dimension had actually broken through to the king of the Kai realm. In the Omni-King universe, the dimensional realms are divided into mortal, god, king of hell, supreme Kai, deity, angel, priest, and Omni-King. For anyone to advance to a higher dimensional level, they need both talent and a significant amount of time. Especially for higher dimensions, the time required is even greater. A dimension like King Kai's would require at least millions of years to evolve, but today, Whisper was shocked to see a child suddenly break through from the mortal level to the level of a King Kai. This spans 2 entire dimensions. Years of cultivation had long since made Weiss's mind as calm as still water, but at this moment, he was truly shocked. Oh no, he's going to die. At this moment, Gran's life was as fragile as a candle flickering in the wind. Weiss could no longer hold back and waved his staff. A ray of silver light entered Gran's body, instantly healing his injuries and restoring his vitality to its peak. As Gran's life force was restored, his dimensionality surged once again, directly reaching the peak of King Kai's state. What on earth is going on? How did he get promoted again? Weiss's breathing became rapid. This little guy is really too strange. He was clearly on the verge of death, but he broke through to the level of a king of the Kai before he died. Moreover, after he recovered, his dimensional level once again reached the peak of King Kai. The highest dimension is the Kaio, and the next dimension is the dimension of gods at the level of the Supreme Kai and the God of Destruction. Could he possibly break through to the dimension of gods? Weiss was in a state of turmoil, he kept staring at Grant on the ground. He didn't discover any miraculous power of the super dragon within Gran, meaning that this little guy's breakthrough to this level was entirely due to his own efforts. How did he manage to do that? Weiss stared at Gran for more than 10 minutes, but the dimensional fluctuations around Gran stopped changing. Phew! Weiss breathed a heavy sigh of relief. It's unbelievable that an angel like him could be so shocked. Fortunately, Gran's dimension no longer changes, otherwise, if a 6-year-old child broke through to the god dimension and was seen by those destruction gods who have cultivated diligently for tens of millions of years, it would be quite a shock. Then they'd really make a laughing stock. The surroundings became deathly silent. Gran was still lying on the ground, unconscious. Gran's dimension no longer changed, but a dimensional seed suddenly appeared deep within his soul. The unconscious Gran was unaware of this, and Weiss was also unaware of the changes in Gran. He stood to one side, staff in hand, seemingly deep in thought. Another half-hour passed, and Weiss still looked serious. Finally, he lifted Gran from the ground and then transformed into a streak of 7-colored light, leaving the planet. Gran remained unconscious for 3 more days. Suddenly, he opened his eyes and sat up abruptly from the ground. Where is this? Gran was panting heavily as he looked around. This is beside a lake. On the other side of the lake are many crystal trees, and many bioluminescent plankton float in the air above. I'm dead, so this must be hell. Gran was talking to himself. Sudden. A gentle voice came from afar, this is the realm of the gods of destruction. God realm destruction? Gran was stunned for a moment, the surrounding environment really did resemble the world of gods of destruction from an anime. The next second, he instantly realized, I'm not dead. Do you really want to die? Weiss walked over, staff in hand. He looked at the child before him, his heart still unable to find peace. This little guy came back from the brink of death, and his power is 200 times stronger than before. He has also broken through the dimensional barrier from the mortal level to the peak level of the King of the Realms. It's unbelievable no matter how you look at it. No, no, no. Gran shook his head quickly, he finally recognized who was beside him. It was the gentle and refined Weiss. Clearly, Weiss ultimately saved him. But, why does his tone sound a bit strange? Mr. Weiss, I'm so sorry, you were the only one I could think of in that situation. Gran stood up and bowed to him, thank you for your help, Mr. Weiss. It's quite clever of you to think of me in that critical situation. So let me ask you, how did you know my name? Weiss suddenly paused. This little guy not only knew he existed, but also knew he liked to eat delicious food. He said meaningfully, you little rascal, you know quite a lot. Gran's heart tightened. He quickly thought of an explanation, although the gods of destruction and angels rarely roam the universe, there are countless legends about you. As a scion, I naturally know some of those legends. His childish voice echoed by the lake, but Weiss remained silent. He was aware of this, because just recently, he had taken Beerus to planet Vegeta. Therefore, it's quite normal for scions to know about the existence of gods of destruction and angels. But one thing is strange. This little guy previously said he wanted to punch the god of destruction and kick the Omni King, and he even knows about the Omni King. And how did you come to know the name of the Omni King? Weiss looked at him with a scrutinizing gaze. It's normal for gods of destruction and angels to have legends in the universe, but not everyone can know about the Omni King. Glenn felt a chill run down his spine, how can this be explained? Got it. Gran lowered his head and whispered, I saw it in the Scion history books. Those books say the most powerful and greatest person in the world is called Xeno, Omni King. Planet Vegeta has already exploded, he doesn't believe Whis will actually pursue this to the end. Scion race? History books? Weiss looked up at the sky, a flicker of memory crossing his eyes, as if he had remembered something. Gran was taken aback. Whis's expression suggested that the Scion race might actually possess some kind of historical record. All right. Weiss didn't press further, simply saying, what happened to the most delicious food in the entire universe you promised? The sudden shift in topic caught Gran off guard. Was he just going to drop the question? Or was it that the Scion race really had some extraordinary background? Weiss looked at him with a strange expression. Little guy, I'm asking you a question. You're not going to renege on your promise, are you? It's true that Weiss is a cultured angel, it's true that he must remain neutral, and it's even more true that he cannot wage war against people in the universe. But he gets really angry if someone lies to him, especially when it comes to food. As for the consequences of his anger, he may not be able to do it himself, but he will personally awaken the still sleeping Beerus. Gran snapped out of his daze and fell silent. When you looked so nonchalant about the most delicious food in the universe, I thought I was going to die. Looking at it now, don't you still just want to eat something delicious? Weiss noticed the changes in Gran's expression and roughly guessed what the other was thinking. Am I really that unprincipled? If it weren't for the strange shift in your dimension, do you think I'd even give you the time of day? Weiss mentally scoffed, but he didn't ask Gran about the dimensional issue. Because he could tell that the little guy was unaware that his dimension had already broken through to the peak level of the King of the Realms. Clearly, the other party was also unaware of the secret he possessed. Even if he asks, he won't get the answer he wants. Why not take him back to the God of Destruction realm? That way we can observe him up close. That's why Weiss took Glenn away. He definitely didn't want to eat what Glenn called the most delicious food in the universe. Absolutely not. Mr. Weiss, do you have any ingredients? Grant asked cautiously. Weiss frowned. You're not suggesting you make it for me yourself, are you? Grant nodded vigorously. Yes, I'll make it for you myself. My daily diet consists almost entirely of sushi and sashimi. Eating such bland food occasionally is fine, but who could stand eating it every day? In his previous life, Gran was a rich second-generation heir. He was particularly passionate about all kinds of food, so he was very knowledgeable about various Hyuxia cuisines. He learned various cooking methods from renowned chefs, including pan-frying, stir-frying, deep-frying, and roasting. This time, he was determined to let Weiss taste the delicious food of the great nation of Daxia. This was Gran's way of repaying his debt of gratitude. He definitely wasn't trying to whet Weiss's appetite and then have him teach him cultivation. Absolutely not. All right, I'll give you the ingredients then, let's see what kind of dishes you can make. With a wave of his staff, Weiss sent an unidentified large fish tumbling out of Yi's dimensional space. Fish? The moment Gran saw that it was a fish, his mind instantly knew how to handle it. Let's have a whole fish feast then. Weiss will definitely enjoy it. And if he's in a good mood, will he teach me Ultra Instinct? If you won't teach me Ultra Instinct, then teach me how to condense destructive energy. Hey hey! Little Gran, short and stocky, stared at the big fish on the ground and grinned foolishly. Hey, 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 what are you grinning about? Aren't you going to let me see the most delicious food in the universe you've been talking about? Yes. Chapter 4. The once quiet and solemn world of the God of Destruction was soon filled with the clanging and clattering sounds of kitchen utensils. Upon seeing this, Weiss suddenly felt a little guilty. If Lord Beerus finds out that he brought a child back to the world of the gods of destruction, he'll make sure this place is filled with the smell of smoke and fire. I'm sure I'll get yelled at. Whis glanced back at the Temple of Destruction in the distance. Lord Beerus was still asleep, which reassured him considerably. He. That way, when there's something delicious to eat later, I can enjoy it all by myself. On the other side, after dissecting the large fish, Gran began preparing a whole fish feast, while simultaneously sensing his own power. Etc. According to my memory, I was just a high-level scion with 800 points of combat power. But why does it feel like my 800 combat points are actually quite strong? Gran held the kitchen utensils in his hands. Strictly speaking, excluding the time he was unconscious, he had only been in this world for half a day, and he didn't really understand the concept of power yet. But he genuinely felt like he could blow up a planet right then and there. Want to give it a try? Gran glanced back at Weiss by the lake. Weiss was lying on a beach chair, half asleep. Let's do it. He turned his head, then aimed his hand at the distant mountains, and began to gather his power as he remembered. Buzzing. Like a water pump, Gran could feel the power being mobilized throughout his body. So crispy and numbing. Wait, wrong channel. Gran felt a swelling in his body, and a burst of energy suddenly appeared in his palm. Is this what they call a ki blast from anime? Gran was very excited. When he was a child, he had always fantasized about being able to generate energy blasts. My dream has finally come true. Go. With his left hand gripping the kitchen utensils, Gran forcefully swung his right hand towards the distant mountains, sending a burst of energy blast flying out. In a matter of moments. Boom! A massive explosion occurred in that distant mountain range. When the smoke cleared, Gran found no damage to the mountain range. That makes sense, after all, this is the legendary realm of the god of destruction. But why do I feel like my combat power is more than 800 points? Just as Gran was completely bewildered, Weiss, who was sitting on a beach chair by the lake, slightly opened his eyes. He had seen everything Gran had just done, but he hadn't stopped him. This little guy's power has increased to 200 times its original level. The reason for this is the benefit brought about by his dimensional advancement. Certainly. Another reason is his physical constitution. Scions have a constitution that stimulates their potential when they are on the verge of death. Weiss only realized this after seeing Gran recover from his injury. He hadn't expected Scions to have such talent. He suddenly felt it was a pity that Beerus had Frisia destroy the Scion race. Of course, he wouldn't stop Beerus either, after all, he's just an angel, and he won't get involved in anything within the universe. One more thing, Weiss looked at Gran's bewildered little expression. Sure enough, the little guy didn't know his secret either. Let's continue to observe him. Weiss closed his eyes again. Strange, is 800 points of combat power really that strong? Gran snapped out of his daze and quickly looked at Weiss, only to find that the other man hadn't noticed his earlier energy blast. Phew, that's all right. He breathed a sigh of relief, and then quickly continued preparing the whole fish feast for Weiss. Pan fry, stir fry, deep fry, roast. He displayed all 18 kinds of martial arts skills. Gran is only 6 years old. Although he is small, it does not affect his martial arts skills. As time passed, the enticing aroma gradually spread throughout the realm of the gods of destruction. This taste. Weiss sat up abruptly in the beach chair, his nose twitching. It smells so good. Weiss swallowed hard. These aromas were absolutely the most wonderful scents he had ever smelled in all his years. It smells so good just from the aroma alone, imagine how incredibly delicious it would be to actually taste it. I can't believe that little guy wasn't lying, he really did have the most delicious food in the entire universe. No, it smells better and better. Weiss originally wanted to maintain an image of remaining calm even if Mount Tai collapsed before him. But at this moment, he could no longer hold back. Whoosh! A streak of 7-colored light flashed through the void, and he instantly appeared next to Gran. In front of Gran was a makeshift stove, piled high with various dishes. There's steamed fish, braised fish, sweet and sour fish, and spicy boiled fish. Besides the fish itself, there are also fish offal, fish bones, and various ways to prepare fish skin. Every dish on the stove is different, but they all embody the characteristics of color, aroma, and taste. Gurgle. Weiss kept swallowing, it smelled so good, he could hardly resist. Just one last dish, almost done. Gran continued to process the remaining ingredients, turning them into a sashimi dish. After the last dish was finished, Gran placed the sashimi at the very end. This sashimi is prepared in much the same way as the ones served at Xiaorizhi restaurant, but it's also one of the dishes in a full fish banquet, which is why he made it this way. Really? No sooner had Gran finished speaking than Weiss immediately attacked. The moment the food entered his mouth, its unparalleled freshness and aroma assaulted his taste buds. Weiss trembled all over. The knife skills are excellent, the cooking time is perfect, and the aroma is absolutely amazing. Damn it, we're using the same ingredients, so why does yours taste so much better? My goodness, the person who invented these cooking methods is a genius. What am I going to do? After eating all this, I can't go back. What kind of junk food did I eat before? Weiss was completely immersed in the world of food. He tasted almost every dish, but he didn't touch the fish sashimi. He used to eat this all the time, but now he doesn't even want to look at it. Gran nodded in satisfaction. Now he should be able to win over Weiss's stomach, which should give him hope of getting Weiss to teach him Ultra Instinct. Seeing how much Weiss was enjoying his food, Gran couldn't resist joining in. He now has the physique of a scion, and having been starved for 3 days, he feels like he could eat a whole cow. Gran joined the battle to destroy the food, and the bowls and plates clattered together. 2 hours passed. Weiss finally finished eating. He took out a napkin and gently wiped the grease from his mouth, regaining his usual elegance. Gran only ate until he was about 60% full. The fish Whis gave him was still too small. For a scion, 2 more fish like that would be more appropriate. Mr. Weiss, what do you think? Does my cooking deserve the title of the most delicious in the universe? Gran blinked his round eyes and spoke like a little adult. Weiss looked down at the little brat, and suddenly didn't know what to say. He had never tasted such delicious food before, it truly deserved the title of the most delicious food in the entire universe. But seeing the brat's arrogant look, he didn't want to. Weiss finally nodded, he deserves it. Grant was taken aback, he hadn't expected this guy to admit it. Weiss understood his expression and said irritably, "What, you think I'm going to be stubborn?" Gran scratched his head and smiled, not retorting. He still wanted Weiss to teach him cultivation. Weiss smiled faintly, "These are all things I've never eaten before, and they truly taste incredibly delicious. It wasn't in vain that I saved your life. Thank you again, Mr. Weiss, for saving us." Grant bowed again, this was his savior, and no amount of respect was too much for him. Weiss waved his hand, indicating that it was fine. The two remained silent, enjoying the leisurely time after the whole fish feast, and the lakeside fell silent. Mr. Weiss. Grant felt the time was right. He's not from the God of Destruction realm, if he doesn't speak up soon, he might be sent away from it. Seeing the little guy's hesitant expression, Weiss seemed to guess what he wanted to say. He didn't speak, but just glanced at him sideways. Grant bowed respectfully and said, "Mr. Weiss, may I ask you to guide my cultivation?" Chapter 5. Of all anime, Dragon Ball is undoubtedly the most exciting and has the highest combat power, no arguments allowed. Gran came into this world and became a scion. He didn't want to be just another face in the crowd in this world of passion, nor did he want to die like an ant from the aftermath of a battle between powerful beings. He also yearns for exhilarating battles, desires the thrill of pushing his limits, and longs to stand atop the pyramid and survey the world below. Most importantly, Vegeta almost killed him as soon as he arrived here, so he's determined to beat Vegeta to a pulp. Of course, all of this requires one to possess great strength. And now the opportunity exists. Whis is the son of the High Priest. He is Beerus's servant and also his master. Beerus's strength is due not only to his own talent, but also to Whis. Weiss is a natural guide, and his power is unknown to anyone. If there is anyone in the world most suitable to be Gran's master, it is Weiss. Seeing that Weiss didn't speak, Grant continued, "I won't let you teach me for nothing. From now on, I'll take care of all your food. That's my payment. What do you say? Is it shameful that Grant has lowered himself so much? What a disgrace! In Dragon Ball, the main characters Goku and Vegeta were even more humble when they begged Whis and Beerus to become stronger. If they could achieve that, how could Gran not? This is Weiss. Forget about just cooking for Weiss. If Weiss could actually teach him cultivation, he'd be willing to run naked. Seeing that Weiss remained silent, Grant suddenly felt uneasy. No way, has he not won over his stomach yet? That can't be. Just when Grant was in despair. Can. Weiss nodded slightly. Grant was stunned for a moment, then he instantly realized, it's done. Thank you, Mr. Weiss. Gran was so excited he jumped and danced. Seeing the little brat's excited expression, Weiss's lips curled up slightly. If he didn't intend to leave Gran in the realm of the god of destruction, why would he have brought him here? The dimensional changes happening to Gran were so bizarre that they piqued his curiosity. He wanted to see what secrets this little guy was hiding. Of course, the reward this little guy mentioned can't be less than what he promised. Although I've agreed to guide your cultivation, your time in the god of destruction realm may not be very long, Weiss suddenly said. Grant instantly calmed down from his excited state, his two small eyebrows furrowing together. What did Weiss mean by this? Since you've read your Scion race's history books, you should also know that the ruler of the god of destruction realm is the god of destruction. Whis glanced back at the palace where Beerus slept. Gran understood instantly, you mean if Lord Beerus awakens, he'll kick me out, right? Hurry. Whis shook his head, a faint smile playing on his lips. Given Lord Beerus's intense hatred for the Scion race, he might very well sabotage you. Upon hearing the word destruction, Grant shuddered. Destruction is the ultimate move of the god of destruction, it can destroy anything weaker than itself. Once damaged, even a dragon cannot restore it. Of course, the Super Shenron is an exception. Gran thought of Beerus's cool destruction pose, and he instantly forgot his fear, becoming wildly excited. Since Weiss has agreed to teach me, I must learn the destruction trick. Wrong. We should learn all of Weiss's skills. Seeing Gran's constantly changing expression, Weiss's lips twitched. What is this little guy thinking? He should be afraid of Beerus waking up right now. He seems really excited. I'm not afraid. As far as I know, Lord Beerus seems to enjoy good food as well. Grant suddenly spoke, his voice still quite childish. Even Mr. Whisper has been captivated by my delicious food, I refuse to believe that Lord Beerus can resist. Boom. Weiss's heart skipped a beat. The little guy is right. Given Beerus's obsession with food, he might actually let Gran off the hook. Broke in. Then he won't be the only one enjoying that kind of food. Mr. Weiss, what's wrong? Gran suppressed a laugh, he naturally knew what Weiss was thinking. You. Weiss looked at him with a resentful expression and said irritably, you know us pretty well, hey. Grant shut his mouth, he dared not speak again. All right, get yourself into a good state today. I'll guide you in your cultivation tomorrow. Also, don't forget the reward you mentioned. Yes. Grant breathed a sigh of relief, thankfully, Weiss didn't press the matter further. Under Wiss's magic, a small house appeared by the lake, and Gran officially settled down in the god of destruction realm. Frisia's headquarters. This planet is filled with a sense of technological industry, inside a palace. Frisia, Vegeta has completed the planet cleaning mission. A handsome man spoke, it was Zarbon. Don't give him any time to cultivate, keep assigning him new tasks. Frisia, sitting in the baby flying machine, slowly began to speak. Frisia is covered by a hard shell, he has blood-red eyes and purplish-black lips, with two tear-like lines below his eyes. He looked extremely evil. Yes. Sabo hesitated, as if he wanted to say something but then stopped himself. Frisia squinted, his voice hoarse, and asked, "What's wrong?" "Frisia, Vegeta's team is missing a scion." Sabo continued his report. According to the recordings transmitted by the scouter, the scion's name was Gran. He was ambushed by the natives and severely injured, but was ultimately abandoned by Vegeta. "Oh ho ho!" Frisia suddenly burst into laughter, his laughter as chilling as a venomous snake. Sabo couldn't help but tremble. At this moment, he dared not speak, fearing that the king would suddenly use him as a scapegoat. Even though there are hardly any scions left, this scion prince still wants to abandon his people. Vegeta is cold-blooded and stupid. Frisia laughed until tears streamed down his face. He looked away and said, "Mr. Sabo, don't you think so? Cold-blooded? Who in this world is as cold-blooded as Frisia?" Sabo naturally wouldn't dare say such things, he just sneered. "That's incredibly stupid. How could such a foolish race possibly have a legendary super scion?" Hearing this, Frisia nodded in satisfaction. Indeed, how could such a foolish race possess a super scion? Mr. Zarbon is indeed exceptionally wise. You may leave now. Yes. Sabo bowed and quickly turned to leave the palace, not wanting to linger any longer with the capricious king. Sure enough, just as he stepped out of the palace gates, Frisia's sinister laughter suddenly echoed from inside the palace again. Sabo shuddered, and without looking back, he quickly flew away from the spot. On the other side, 5-year-old Vegeta returned to Frisia's headquarters. He had only been off the spaceship for a short time when he suddenly received a new mission through the communication device. Vegeta's face contorted with rage. "Damn it, does Frisia really think I'm some free laborer?" Raditz asked cautiously, "What's wrong?" "Shut up, aren't you going to get on the spaceship?" Vegeta jumped into the spaceship, turned around, and said, "You'd better not hold me back, or you'll end up like Gran." Vegeta, who hadn't yet been influenced by Bulma, was still too evil. His words made all the members of his team tremble. Yes. Several small spaceships rose into the air amidst flames and quickly disappeared from Frisia's headquarters. Chapter 6. Destroy the God Realm. With Whis' consent, Gran settled down in the realm of the gods of destruction. The next morning, Weiss provided the ingredients again, and Gran prepared breakfast for Weiss and himself. Breakfast consisted of 2 bowls of beef noodles, one large and one small. The small one was about the size of a normal noodle bowl, but the large one was as big as a water vat. When Weiss saw the ridiculously large portion of beef noodles on the table, the corner of his mouth twitched involuntarily. However, having witnessed Gran's appetite yesterday, he didn't say much. As Weiss ate his beef noodles, his eyes sparkled again. It seems that leaving the little guy in the God of Destruction world was an absolutely correct choice. Weiss suddenly remembered Beerus, and he instinctively protected the bowl. At the dining table, Gran slurped up a mouthful of noodles, then looked up and asked, "Mr. Weiss, what's wrong?" "Without." Weiss gave an awkward smile. "Having gotten used to stealing things from Beerus, I always subconsciously guard against him whenever I eat something delicious." Gran nodded his little head, then suddenly remembered something. "Rumor has it that there's a prophetic fish in the realm of the God of Destruction, right? Why haven't we seen it? It has fallen into a deep sleep." Weiss glanced at the little guy. He knew quite a lot all right. No talking while eating or sleeping. "Eat quickly, I'm going to teach you cultivation later." Gran really wanted to complain. He didn't know who it was that made those strange, blissful noises with every bite of fish they ate yesterday. However, upon hearing that he was going to be taught cultivation techniques, he quickly sped up his breakfast. More than 10 minutes later, the dishes on the lakeside table were magically cleared away by Weiss, and the two of them stood by the lake. Weiss stared intently at Grant. "The energy is raging, the aura is unstable, every movement is unnecessary, there's no way to control the energy, the mind can't keep up with the dimension, and the dimensional realm is unstable." Stared at by Weiss's strange gaze, Grant couldn't help but swallow hard. Mr. Weiss, what's wrong? Whis, staff in hand, clicked his tongue and said, do you know how big the realm of the god of destruction is? Why did he say that? Gran shook his head and said, I don't know. Whis said seriously, your flaws could circle the entire god of destruction realm 10 times over. Gran. No wonder he's Bardos's brother, his little mouth looks like it's been smeared with poison. Gran still asked respectfully, Mr. Weiss, how should I cultivate? At this stage, you cannot cultivate strength. Why? You recovered from near death a few days ago, and your strength has increased to 200 times its original level, did you know that? Weiss said meaningfully. What? Grant's eyes widened, and he touched his body. It turns out that scions really can unleash their potential by recovering from near-death experiences. He's a high-ranking soldier, with his combat power increased by 200 times from 800, which is 160,000 combat power. That's even more powerful than Jinyu. Can I really have a combat power of 160,000 at the age of 6? Grant was thrilled, he never imagined his talent would be so great. Weiss shook his head inwardly. Granta is only 6 years old, his potential has not yet been fully realized. If one's potential is only unleashed due to severe injury, a 10-fold increase in strength would be considered good, it's impossible to achieve a 200-fold increase. Gran will increase his power by 200 times, that's an effect of dimensional elevation. That sudden surge of power you've gained is indeed your power, but you haven't mastered it yet, so you could also say it's not truly your power. Weiss smiled faintly, don't you think your aura is rather weak right now? Grant shook his head. Not counting the time he was unconscious, he had only been in this world for less than 2 days. In such a short time, let alone mastering that surge of power, he couldn't even control the original 800 points of power in this body. At most, Gran can only unleash a few energy blasts through his memories, as for deeper levels of aura control, he simply doesn't know them. He naturally wouldn't sense any aura. Gran raised his little tiger head, his eyes burning, and asked, Mr. Weiss, what do I need to do now? You're at a stage where you're building a foundation. Only with a solid foundation can you go further in the future. Weiss quipped, your first step is to master every ounce of your power, but that process will be a bit painful. Can you handle it? Pain. Grant shook his head, his large, round eyes filled with determination, I'm not afraid. The world of Dragon Ball has too many powerful beings, any attack from them could destroy a planet. Without immense power, let alone reaching the top of the pyramid in the Omni King universe, even survival is a question. Compared to suffering and death, Grant would rather endure more suffering. Okay, you said it yourself, come with me. With a wicked grin, Whis walked toward the distant palace of destruction. Gran eagerly followed, only to find himself heading in the direction of the god of destruction's palace. His scalp tingled instantly. Was he about to enter the god of destruction's palace? That was where Beerus, the god of destruction, slept. The two quickly arrived at the gate of the temple of destruction. The 2 doors are 5 meters high, and are grayish-white in color. They are decorated with many ancient patterns, and occasionally a few traces of destruction can be seen from the cracks in the doors. Standing before the gate, Gran felt as if he had fallen into an ice cave, as if he would be disintegrated by the emanating aura at any moment. No way, is this the pain of wielding power? However, come in. Weiss ignored Grant completely and pushed open the door to go inside. The moment Weiss pushed open the door, a vast aura rushed out, instantly pressing Gran to the ground, his very soul trembling. What kind of aura is this? How scary! Weiss glanced back at Grant, a slight smile playing on his lips. This is Beerus snoring in his sleep, carrying a hint of destruction. Anyone enveloped by this aura would be utterly destroyed. But Granta's dimension has reached the peak of King Kai, the next realm will be the God dimension, on par with Beerus. It was only because of this kind of dimensional support that Gran didn't vanish into thin air. Keep following me. Knowing that Grant would have no problem, Weiss entered the palace hall. There was a long corridor on both sides of the hall, and he turned and walked to the right. Gran struggled to his feet, unaware that he was injured. It turned out this wasn't the place where he could wield his power. So he quickly followed after them. There are many windows along the corridor, through which one can see a part of the landscape of the god of destruction. Little Grant also noticed that the corridor was circular, as if it were encircling something. His mind jolted, something dawned on him, and he cautiously spoke towards Weiss's retreating figure. "Mr. Whisper, is this the place where Lord Beerus sleeps?" Grant pointed to the inner wall of the corridor. Whis turned around and chuckled, "That's right, that's the space where Lord Beerus sleeps. If you don't want to wake him, you'd better not make too much noise." "Did you disturb Beerus?" Gran thought of scenes from the movie Battle of Gods. That's impossible. In the anime, even a time bomb alarm clock almost failed to wake Beerus, so how could a little voice possibly disturb him? That Weiss guy is really wicked. Grant cursed inwardly, but he didn't dare make too much of a fuss, just in case. Seeing Gran's cautious demeanor, Weiss assumed the little guy was frightened and couldn't help but grin mischievously. "Go in. You'll stay inside for 3 years, that should allow you to master your powers." Reaching the end of the corridor, Weiss opened a door. 3 years? Before Gran could react, his little bottom was kicked, and then his small body fell into the room. Weiss's cheeky oh-ho-ho laughter came from outside the door. The laughter gave Grant a bad feeling. He had just gotten up from the ground when he finally saw the room. It's more like a world than a room, it's vast. Desert, glaciers, storms. The environment of this world is extremely harsh, and there are also many strange and gigantic beasts fighting and roaring. Sudden. An immense pressure is coming. It's gravity. Grant was forced to the ground, and he felt as if every cell in his body was shackled. That wasn't the end of it. Many giant beasts, seeing his appearance, rushed towards him. Fighting behemoths in this environment? So this is how you master your own power. Weiss, I hate you. Next time I make dumplings, I'll make sure you eat all the dumpling wrappers. Time flies, and a month has passed just like that. There was a set of table and chairs by the lake, and Weiss sat in the chair looking somewhat listless. He sighed and muttered to himself, "Judging by the time, that little guy won't be out for over 2 years. Life without him cooking is really going to be tough." Sudden. A chubby-faced little fellow walked out of the palace, looking quite disheveled. Blood trickled from the corner of his mouth, his clothes were tattered to shreds, and his body was covered in wounds. However, judging from his behavior, he seems to have completely taken control of his power. Chapter 7. How is this possible? Weiss's eyes widened, and he jumped up from his chair. The person who came out was Gran, but according to his estimation, it would take Gran at least 3 years to fully control the power of his body. It's only been a month, how did he get out? Gran walked towards the lake, revealing not a trace of power within him. This demonstrated his absolute control over his power. "Mr. Weiss, I'm out." Grant arrived at the lakeside, wiped the blood from his mouth, and looked at it with a resentful expression. "It seems you've completely mastered your power." Weiss snapped out of his daze and kept staring into the other man's eyes. "A month? How did this little guy manage that? Besides his dimensional abilities, is he also a martial arts prodigy?" Hearing Weiss's words, Grant's eyes grew even more resentful. "Mr. Weiss, do you know how I've spent this month?" "I know a little bit." "Mr. Weiss, that place is no place for a human to stay." With a pained expression, Gran began to recount his experiences in that mysterious world. The environment in that mysterious world was extremely harsh. Daytime temperatures could rise to over 60 degrees Celsius, while nighttime temperatures could drop below 0 degrees Celsius. In addition to temperature changes, there are also sandstorms, tornadoes, hail, and torrential rain. Even more terrifying is that there are countless giant beasts in that world, each one slightly stronger than him. The moment Gran entered, he was targeted by countless giant beasts, and from beginning to end, he was constantly on the run for his life. During his escape, an immense force of gravity pressed down on him. Temperature, behemoths, gravity, hunger, stamina, these problems plagued him every moment. If one cannot have absolute control over their own power, those behemoths can always sense their location. Fortunately, the oppressive feeling brought by death also allowed him to completely control Qi and every bit of power within his body. Gran said irritably, "Mr. Weiss, you're so awful. You didn't even tell me what was going on inside beforehand, leaving me in such a sorry state." No, even if I told you, with your previous level of control over power, you would still be in this sorry state." Weiss sat back down in his chair, suppressing his shock, and said, "Besides, hasn't this month of training allowed you to completely control your power?" Gran looked down at his hands, and for some reason, he felt that completely controlling the power in his body didn't seem so difficult. "Then let me tell you, Lord Beerus also went into that room back then. Is that so?" Gran was taken aback. Whis nodded, "Lord Beerus was just like you back then. His control over his power was also very rough. It was only after the great escape from that room that he finally gained complete control over every wisp of his power." Gran suddenly became curious, how long did Lord Beerus stay inside? That mysterious world was extremely strange, the environment, the giant beasts, and the gravity within seemed to change depending on a person's strength. The stronger you are, the more that world will exploit you. In that situation, there was absolutely no other way but to use every last bit of strength to escape. Gran was also eager to know how long Beerus had been inside, so he could compare the difference between himself and the god of destruction. "I think you'd better ask Lord Beerus yourself." Weiss shook his head. He speculated that it would take Gran at least 3 years to fully control his power. That's because Beerus spent a year inside before mastering his powers. Gran shouldn't be as powerful as Beerus. Who would have thought? I misjudged. Hey? So the gap between me and Lord Beerus is that big? Gran said sullenly when Whis didn't speak. What's the meaning? Weiss frowned, he couldn't understand what the little guy was saying. Little Gran sighed, "Mr. Weiss won't tell me how long Lord Beerus stayed inside, he obviously doesn't want to discourage me. After all, that's the god of destruction. He'll definitely be out in less than half a month. As expected, I'm still far from good enough." At this point, Grant looked up at the sky, his expression somewhat disappointed. "Weiss. Beerus is far inferior to you, I only kept quiet because I was afraid you'd get arrogant." But through this trial, he discovered that Gran was actually a martial arts genius. Dimension, martial arts. Dual talent system? This is getting more and more interesting. At this moment, Gran, sitting cross-legged on the grass, spoke again, "Mr. Weiss, haven't I completely mastered my power? But why does it still feel so violent?" After he finished speaking, he revealed a wisp of power. Boom! Gran's aura remained as violent as ever, making him look like a prehistoric behemoth at first glance. Mastering power and still being violent with that power are two different things, or rather, the latter is a deeper level of martial arts. Weiss looked at Gran with a strange expression. This little guy actually knew that violent power was bad. But the violent aura was related to his state of mind. He hadn't let Gran enter that space to cultivate his mental state in the first place. Instead, it's about having Gran engage in life or death battles in extremely harsh environments, so that he can completely master every bit of power within him. Judging from Gran's behavior, there is no doubt that he has completely taken control of the power within his body. How can I calm my power down? No rush. It's important to balance work and rest in everything you do. Weiss pointed to the stove in the distance and laughed. Go on, make up for all the delicious food I've missed this past month. In fact, Gran's entry into the mysterious space was not the real cultivation, it was merely preparation before he began his cultivation. Only by allowing him to master his own power can he prepare for the following states of mind, dimensions, rules, and ultimate freedom. Weiss said he would guide Gran's training, and he would be very responsible. A tall building rises from the ground, everything must be done step by step, and you can't rush it. Of course, how much he can learn depends on the kid's talent. If he can learn all his skills, Weiss won't hold back. Gran looked at himself, covered in blood, and was utterly speechless. I've been on the run for a month, and I haven't even had a proper rest yet, and you're already asking me to cook you something delicious? Even those who are about to hang themselves should take a breath. Snort. I'll make dumplings later, and you can eat all the dumpling wrappers. Little Gran was shrouded in an aura of resentment, so intense it seemed almost tangible. Sudden. A magical light enveloped Gran's entire body, and he instantly felt warm all over. His strength and injuries were rapidly recovering. How comfortable! Thank you, Mr. Weiss. I'll go make you something to eat right away. The resentment in Gran's eyes vanished instantly, and he quickly ran towards the stove in the distance. Pfft! Grana's peaking opera-style face-changing act made Weiss burst out laughing. There's this funny kid in the world of gods of destruction, and he seems kind of interesting. As for Gran, he said he'd make dumplings, so he did. Considering that Weiss treated him, and this guy is at least human, let him eat half a dumpling wrapper. Chapter 8. Frisia's headquarters, inside a palace. Frisia, Vegeta has returned from his mission. Dodoria bowed towards the top of the palace. A baby carriage hovered above the palace, and Frisia sat atop it, calmly asking, has the listening equipment picked up any messages? Your Majesty, Vegeta's team has lost another scion, leaving them with 6 members. Is there anything else? By the way, Your Majesty, according to Vegeta, there are still quite a few scions scattered outside. Dodoria grinned wickedly, among them was Radith's brother, who was supposedly exiled to a barren planet, which I believe was called Earth. Earth? Never heard of it. How powerful is that thing? Dodoria suddenly blushed. Frisia's face darkened. Dodoria quickly apologized, Your Majesty, I'm so sorry. It's just that Radith's brother's fighting power is hilarious, he was born with a fighting power of only 2 points. 2 points of combat power. Frisia's pupils suddenly contracted, and the corners of his eyes twitched wildly. A scion with only 2 points of fighting power. Is this data achievable by a human? Even a dog probably couldn't achieve this level of strength. Frisia's face turned bright red instantly, he could no longer hold back. Oh ho ho! Dodoria always thought his king's laughter sounded like that of an idiot, but he dared not say it. Your Majesty, since there are still so many scions outside, to prevent future trouble, should we send someone to eliminate them? Do you think a cripple with only 2 points of combat power is worth bothering with? Don't waste your time. Frisia's smile vanished instantly. He waved his hand dismissively, go on, keep Vegeta on the planet cleaning mission. My planet trading business can't function without them. Yes. His king may be a bit capricious, but what's wrong with his king only wanting to be a cosmic real estate developer? Following the king means living a life of luxury, so Dodoria still respects his king very much. Dodoria bowed and left the palace. Soon after he left, the palace was filled with the sound of idiotic laughter again. Oh ho ho! How can such a trash race, capable of producing cripples with only 2 points of combat power, dare to call themselves a warrior race? On the other side, not long after Vegeta returned to Frisia's headquarters, he received a new mission, and his face immediately turned ashen. Raditz, standing nearby, asked, "Vegeta, what's wrong?" Vegeta Jr. turned his head, his tone filled with murderous intent, and said, "That Frisia guy has sent us out on another mission." "What?" Naba flew into a rage. "Does he really think we're cattle?" "Shut up!" Vegeta suppressed his anger. Ever since his planet Vegeta exploded, the treatment of his squad had taken a sharp turn for the worse. "Let's go." Disobeying Frisia's orders? Vegeta may be young, but he's not stupid. Without planet Vegeta as his backing, if he dared to disobey Frisia's orders, he would probably be wiped out by the Jinyu force in the next second. Isn't he always trying to get us to go on missions? Fine, we'll go on a mission then, but this time we'll be back in 3 years. Yes. Raditz and the others' eyes lit up. Soon, the 7 small spaceships left Frisia's headquarters. Destroy the God Realm. Another week has passed, and Gran has been in the realm of the God of Destruction for over a month. Drink. A chubby little fellow hovered in the void. He fired an energy blast forward, then transformed into a streak of light and chased after it. Reaching the energy blast, he pushed forward with both hands, and another energy blast shot out from his palms. Boom! A deafening explosion instantly filled the sky. He's really mastered every ounce of his body's power. This kid is a monster. Weiss stood by the lake, watching the movement in the sky, and couldn't help but nod. The smoke above dissipated, and Gran reappeared in sight. The energy blast exchange had not harmed him. It's still too violent. Gran hovered in the void, looking at his own hands. Having been in the Dragon Ball world for over a month, he first arrived in the world of the gods of destruction, and then entered a mysterious world for a great escape. As for the increase in strength, according to Weiss, his current combat power has reached 320,000. Some might say that it's a bit too little to have only improved combat power this much after being guided by an angel for over a month. That's not actually the case. Strictly speaking, Weiss didn't even guide Gran's cultivation, he merely let Gran enter that mysterious world. Besides, Gran is only 6 years old, and he is still in the foundational stage. In addition, his potential had only recently been unleashed, and his ability to increase his combat power from 160,000 to 320,000 was largely thanks to his numerous escapes in the mysterious world. "Mr. Weiss." Gran descended from the sky, saying helplessly, "I feel my power is still too violent, it always makes me misjudge the battle." "Oh ho ho!" Weiss chuckled, "It's good that you noticed that. Then what should I do to calm down the power?" "You'd better cook me a proper dumpling feast first." Weiss curled his lip. A week ago, when this little guy was making dumplings, he accidentally mixed up half of the dumplings that didn't have filling. "Half filled, half all dough, is this something a human could do?" Grant grinned, showing his large teeth. "Who told you not to warn me about how terrifying that room was? Since you don't want to do it, then I won't teach you." "That damned Weiss, fine, I'll do it." Gran stormed off to the stove and started working. Weiss watched his retreating figure and chuckled, "Trying to outmaneuver me? You're still too green." Half an hour passed. Weiss finally got to enjoy a delicious dumpling feast. And instead of dumplings that were all skin, they were so tasty. After Weiss finished eating and tidied up his things, Gran stood by the lake, his gaze intense, and said, "All right, now it's time to teach me how to calm this power down, isn't it?" Weiss rolled his eyes at him, but didn't tease him any further. "You can now control your power at will, but do you even know what power is?" "Power? Isn't power just power?" Grant feigned confusion. He roughly guessed that Weiss was going to instruct him on something, probably related to qi, vital energy. "Really? It's qi." Weiss said calmly, "Everything has energy, qi, and energy is the source of a person's power. Only when your energy is greater will your power be greater." Gran seemed to understand something, "So my power is so violent because my energy is raging. That's right. Whis gave Gran a look that said, "You're a scion, you must have fought in the universe before, you must know something about those aliens." You scions, including those aliens, are all the same. The constant warfare has long since disrupted your inner energy." Weiss said helplessly, "When your energy is disordered, how can your power not be violent? How can I calm down?" Gran suddenly remembered what Weiss had said a week ago and tentatively asked, "Could it be that the state of mind you mentioned before is the way to resolve the berserk aura?" Chapter 9. Gran had already studied the issue of aura in that mysterious world. At first, he didn't know how to sense qi, let alone use it. In fact, sensing and utilizing qi is not difficult at all. During that month-long escape, he used almost every ounce of his strength to the fullest extent. It was under those extreme circumstances that he finally mastered every ounce of power within him. In Weiss's words, qi is the source of power, and Gran has achieved absolute control over qi. However, he couldn't calm down his anger. "Your memory is good, it's the state of mind I mentioned before." Weiss nodded, and continued, "To put it simply, state of mind refers to a person's inner state. Don't let emotions control you, don't let external influences both you and others, achieve inner and outer harmony, and calm your mind. Only then will your anger subside, and you won't be affected by violent forces." Upon hearing this, Gran instinctively blurted out, "Does it mean being as still as the sky and as fast as lightning?" These were the words spoken by the servant of the earth's gods, but the words had barely left his lips. Boom! Weiss was struck dumb, he trembled. Where did you hear that from?" Weiss stared intently at Gran. "Ah!" Grant was taken aback by Westbrook's reaction. Was there something wrong with that statement? Or was there something wrong with Popovich? I saw it in the Scion history books." "Another Scion history book?" Weiss fell silent, and at that moment, no one knew what he was thinking. More than 10 minutes passed. The real meaning of this saying is, one's mind should be as calm as the sky, and one's actions as swift as lightning. Weiss looked at the child beside him and finally spoke again, "This encompasses 2 stages, the state of mind and bodily instincts. Together, they form a state called extreme ease. This is something I was going to teach you later, I didn't expect you to know it beforehand." "I don't know, I saw it in history books." Little Gran blinked his round eyes and pretended to be crazy. It turns out that Popo taught Gaku the state of Ultra Instinct, which explains why Gaku was able to enter Ultra Instinct during the Tournament of Power. Everything has a traceable origin. Judging from this, Bobo must be someone important. But who exactly is he? Weiss's lips twitched. "Fine, if you don't know, you don't know. The state of mind is divided into 2 stages. The first stage is selflessness, which means forgetting who you are, forgetting where you are, forgetting what you want to do, forgetting everything. The second stage is selflessness, which means acting without conscious effort, going with the flow, stripping away human weaknesses, and entrusting the fight to bodily instincts. Let's begin. Just go sit by the lake and meditate. Throughout your meditation, keep the word selflessness in mind. Once you understand this concept, you'll reach the first stage. At your current stage, just achieving the first stage is already quite remarkable." Weiss turned and lay back down on the beach chair. Gran scratched his head. "Can you really reach the first level of mental cultivation through meditation? Is it really that simple?" Fortunately, Weiss had no idea what Grant was thinking, otherwise he would have definitely rolled his eyes at him. Even many gods of destruction haven't been able to reach the second stage, so how can it be easy? Glenn approached the lake, sat down cross-legged, and then closed his eyes. "Do you want to remember the word selflessness?" It didn't seem too difficult, and Gran entered a meditative state immediately. Weiss closed his eyes on the beach chair, no longer paying attention to Glenn. If he were to guide ordinary people in cultivation, Weiss's first step would be to help them control their own power, the second step would be to cultivate that power, and the third step would be combat techniques. But Gran was different. Gran had an exceptional talent for martial arts, so he needed to be taught according to his aptitude. For Gran, the power training phase needs to be postponed. Gran's age is more suitable for cultivating his mental state. Imagine if a 6 or 7-year-old child could comprehend and successfully cultivate the first stage of mental state. Then he will definitely be able to cultivate to the state of ultimate freedom in the future. Weiss remembered that it took Beerus about 2 years to master the first level of mind and about 10 years to master the second level. It seems to have taken hundreds of years to fully master the body's instincts and reach a state of effortless mastery, with its flaws. Weiss speculated that, given Gran's talent, it shouldn't take him more than 2 years to reach the first level of mental cultivation. Time passed day by day. During this time, aside from his 3 meals a day, Gran spent his time meditating by the lake. With food and drink readily available, Weiss didn't bother little Glenn. The world of the god of destruction became very quiet. A month passed, and Wiss's expression suddenly turned serious. Because, in his observation, the violent aura emanating from Gran had begun to calm down. In the second month, Weiss's expression became even more terrified. He discovered that the violent aura emanating from Gran had completely subsided. In other words, Gran's state of mind has completely reached the first level. Is this kid insane? He's reached the first level of the selfless mind state in just 2 months? What kind of talent does he have? Weiss was both excited and shocked. He stood at a distance, not daring to approach Grant, for fear that even the slightest movement of his might disturb Grant. No. He hasn't woken up yet, he's still cultivating. Could it be? Weiss's breathing became increasingly rapid. From that day on, Grant remained in a meditative state, neither eating nor drinking. Another month has passed. Gran has cultivated his mental state for 3 months in total, but there is still no sign of him waking up. Weiss knew that Gran was about to cultivate the second level of his mental state. This kid's talent was too abnormal. He looked forward to the day Gran would awaken even more. 6 months have passed. A year has passed. Buzz. An ethereal aura erupted from Gran. How is this possible? Only a year has passed, and he's already reached the second level of mental cultivation. Weiss's usual elegance, composure, and calmness in the face of chaos had vanished, his face was filled with shock. A year ago, he experienced intense emotional turmoil due to Gran's dimensional issues, and now he is once again shocked by Gran. Crash! A silver glow appeared on 7-year-old Gran, and from him, the ethereal aura spread at an astonishing speed. Arrive at the palace of the god of destruction. Arrive at the place where Beerus sleeps. Beerus suddenly opened his eyes. The god of destruction awakened, and the 7th universe suddenly trembled, all the gods seemed to sense something. North Pole King. Good heavens! Wasn't that person just falling into a deep sleep? How come they've woken up again? A short, stocky man paced back and forth on the grass, his hands behind his back, his face filled with worry. The Supreme Kai's realm. What's going on with this feeling? Could it be that Majin Bu has awakened? A short, chubby man with a rooster-like hairstyle, his face filled with terror, quickly led Jet away from the Supreme Kai's realm. Chapter 10. All the gods in the 7th universe who knew of the existence of the god of destruction were gripped by panic. Meanwhile, in the world of the gods of destruction, the aura of ultra instinct? It's not Whis. Who on earth has come to the god of destruction world? Beerus rose from his slumber, his eyes cold and deep, looking into his gaze felt as if one's soul would be drawn into an endless abyss. Is it another god of destruction? No, besides me, no other god of destruction knows ultra instinct. Hey, the aura is so weak, who could it be? Beerus's eyes suddenly turned extremely dangerous, and a dense purple light erupted from his body. Wherever the purple light passed, all the time bomb alarm clocks were destroyed. Boom! A large hole was blasted into the space above the sleeping area, and Beerus took to the air. He flew into the air and immediately saw two figures by the lake. Even Lord Beerus has been alerted. Weiss, standing by the lake, also saw the skinny guy in mid-air. He waved his staff, and a silver light enveloped Gran, who was sitting cross-legged on the ground. The next second, boom! A beam of purple light descended from the sky, instantly shattering the entire lake. Weiss knew this would be the outcome. Thankfully, he had prepared a protective shield for Gran beforehand. Seeing the lake shattered, he used time reversal to restore it to its original state. Weiss, who is this little guy? What's he doing here? Beerus walked over step by step, his gaze fixed on Gran. Whis said, Lord Beerus, his name is Gran, he is a scion, and I brought him here. Scions? Shouldn't the scion race have been wiped out by Frisia? Did Frisia disobey my orders? A dense purple aura instantly erupted from Beerus's body, and upon contact with the air, it caused the space around him to collapse. Then I don't know about Frisia. Hey, what's going on with this little guy's dimension? Beerus's killing intent vanished abruptly, and his expression changed. Oh ho ho, it seems Lord Beerus has discovered it. A king of the Kai realm at his peak? At his age, how is that possible? Beerus's eyes widened, his expression filled with disbelief. It's no wonder Beerus was so shocked. In this world, apart from the union of gods to create a born god, the only way is through cultivation. Of course, it might be possible to do it with a super dragon, but no one has ever tried. Reaching the level of a Kaio through cultivation would take millions of years. It's simply impossible. But now, that kid looks only 7 years old. How come he's already reached the peak of the Kaio level? No, that ethereal aura just now came from this little guy. Beerus's eyes widened again. That's right, he's the one who caused it. His current state of mind has reached the 2nd level. Whis was quite pleased with Beerus's expression. After all, he had been shocked by Gran many times himself. Beerus swallowed hard. At that moment, he suddenly didn't know what to say. That's the 2nd level of the selflessness state of mind. Among all the gods of destruction, apart from him, the others can only touch upon the selflessness state of mind at most. To truly reach the state of selflessness, one needs extraordinary talent. No matter how much time one is given, it is absolutely impossible. Beerus shifted his gaze. Weiss, did you teach him? Yes. Weiss nodded smugly. Beerus, what are you bragging about? How could you teach a scion these things? What happened during my slumber? That's how it is. Weiss didn't hide anything. He recounted everything that had happened over the past year. Beerus listened quietly, but the more he listened, the more shocked he became. It took him a full year to fully master his own power, but this little guy reached that level in just 1 month. Of course, what's most astonishing is Gran's peak Kaio level and his 2nd level of mental state. Lord Beerus, what do you think of him? Whis covered his mouth and chuckled. His talent is terrifying, his background is terrifying. Beerus offered his assessment. Gran's talent is terrifyingly obvious, that goes without saying, but his origins are shrouded in mystery. According to Beerus, the scion race is just a bunch of wild monkeys who only know how to fight and kill. Not only are they extremely weak, but they also have incredibly volatile tempers. How could such a race produce a genius like Gran? He also knows we love good food, which isn't surprising, given our many legends throughout the universe. But he also knows about the Omni King. Beerus stroked his chin, looking at Gran on the grass, and said solemnly, could it be that the scion race really has some kind of history book? Perhaps the scion race really does have some kind of history book. After speaking, Weiss fell into thought. Beerus was taken aback. What did Whis mean by that? Did the scions have some kind of powerful background? No way. When I became a god of destruction, I had never even heard of the Scion race. The only reason I knew about them was because of Frisia. Beerus chimed in from the side. But Weiss remained silent, his brow furrowed, as if he had remembered something, but was unsure. Meanwhile, on Gran's side, for some reason, he always felt that his talent and comprehension were somewhat exceptional. Gran didn't find selflessness difficult at all. Just like when he mastered the power a year ago, he soon completely mastered the state of selflessness. According to Weiss, it would be quite remarkable for him to have comprehended and cultivated the first level of mental state at this stage. But he seemed to think that the second stage of mindset wasn't difficult either. So he tried again to comprehend the second level of mental cultivation. It turned out to be really not difficult. Grant opened his eyes, and the silver light emanating from his body suddenly intensified, followed by a touch of pale silver tinge to his hair. At this moment, he was calmer than ever before. Is this the state of mind of selflessness? Gran looked down at his little hands and murmured to himself. Sudden. A purple orb of light shot towards him from behind. Gran's expression remained unchanged. He simply turned slightly to the side, as if using his body's instincts, and easily dodged the sneak attack. Click! The lake in front of him was instantly destroyed, turning into starlight and dissipating into Mount Sumeru. This is destruction, could it be? The silver light around Gran vanished instantly, and he turned around in horror. Really? The person who was just behind him was Beerus. No, according to the timeline, he should still be asleep at this point. How could he have suddenly woken up? Grant was unaware of the commotion he had caused. He tensed up, fearing that Beerus would ruin him on the spot. Beerus and Whis exchanged a glance. This is not yet a true state of selflessness. This was what the two of them were thinking, because in their observation, Grant's hair had just been light silver. In addition, Beerus had just ambushed Gran, and Gran seemed to have used his physical instincts to dodge the attack. However, upon closer observation, it can be found that Gran still retains a subjective consciousness, has not yet shed his human weaknesses, and has not yet completely surrendered the fight to his physical instincts. In other words, Gran has not yet reached a true state of selflessness. At best, it can only be described as a state of semi-selflessness. Even so, Gran's talent is still terrifyingly high. Even Beerus admitted that he was no match for him. Beerus's gaze grew increasingly fanatical. This kid, he's a monster. Whis noticed Beerus's gaze, and a slight smile appeared on his lips. He seemed to know what Beerus was up to. Hey, your name is Gran, right? Beerus walked towards him. Greetings, Lord Beerus. Gran bowed deeply, trying to appear as composed as possible. Take it easy. Gran's lips twitched. He was facing the strongest god of destruction, he couldn't afford to relax even a little. I heard you're a scion. Then tell me, how did you survive Frisia? Look, how can I not be nervous after hearing that? Gran's heart began to pound wildly. That damned King Vegeta. If you find the best pillow in the universe, just give it to him. Why provoke him? Gran didn't gain any cheat codes after transmigrating, so if Beerus wanted to sabotage him, he currently has no way to stop him. But he also had the skill of cooking to save his life, and thinking about that made him feel much more relaxed. Lord Beerus, it was Frisia who voluntarily let me and Prince Vegeta go. Grant told the truth. Vegeta didn't die either, hey? Oh, I see. Beerus glanced at Weiss, who nodded as if to say that was true. If that's the case, then Grant's origins become clear again. Lord Beerus, I know our Scion King has offended you. I can cook many delicious dishes, could you? Grant was afraid Beerus would ruin things on the spot, but he hadn't finished speaking. Beerus's voice came through, your talent is quite good. Would you be interested in becoming a candidate god of destruction for Universe 7? Chapter 11. A huge question mark flickered in Gran's eyes. Make me a candidate god of destruction for Earth and the universe, in other words, make me Beerus's apprentice. Hiss! Gran gasped. This is too sudden. He knew he had exceptional culinary skills and wouldn't die. But who could have imagined that Beerus would act so unpredictably, suddenly making me a candidate god of destruction? Whis had no objection to Beerus's suggestion, on the contrary, he wholeheartedly agreed. The past year of instruction had shown him the true terror of Gran. If we compare Beerus's talent with Gran's, to put it bluntly, Beerus can only look up to Gran. If Universe 7 had such a candidate god of destruction, it would be a great joy for Universe 7. Kid, didn't you say your scion race has a history book? Beerus said calmly, since you know so much, you should also understand what I mean by alternate destruction. Gran certainly understood what a candidate for god of destruction meant. If he becomes the candidate god of destruction for Universe 7, he will become a figure second only to the god of destruction in Universe 7. Furthermore, if Beerus dies or steps down, he will still be the next god of destruction. The lives of the god of destruction and the Supreme Kai are connected. Glenn certainly didn't want to have such a weakness. I'm sorry, Lord Beerus, my strength is still too weak, I'm afraid I cannot fulfill this duty. Please find someone else. Gran refused outright. Gran's words were not untrue. In the year or so that he had been in the realm of the god of destruction, he had been either on the path of mastering power or on the path of cultivating his mind. He never trained his strength always increased naturally. In terms of combat power, he currently only has 500,000 combat power. A combat power of 500,000 is indeed too weak compared to Beerus. Weak. Beerus's lips twitched. You're only 7 years old, right? Your current power is almost on par with Frisia's power in its sealed state. Still think you're weak? The form Frisia takes while riding in a baby carriage is not actually his normal form. He appears in this form mainly to better control his power. Frisia's normal form is actually that of a short, round-headed man. When Frisia unlocks his transformation into his normal form, his ultimate power reaches 120 million. Gran fell silent. Seeing that Gran remained silent, Beerus said jokingly, perhaps you don't yet understand what you've realized. My early awakening was entirely due to what you've comprehended. So that's how it is. I was wondering why Beerus suddenly woke up. I was the one who startled him. Gran finally realized. With your talent, you'll reach my level sooner or later, and you might even surpass me. Beerus said this without blushing at all, but Whis rolled his eyes. Others reached the peak of the king of the Kai realm at the age of 7, completely mastered their own power, and cultivated their mind to the state of semi-selflessness. Once he cultivates his physical instincts to a deeper level, he will completely master the ultimate freedom. Could you, Beerus, have reached this level at that age? Weiss found it somewhat amusing, but he didn't expose Beerus. After spending more than a year together, he also wanted this mysterious little guy to become a candidate god of destruction for Universe 7. With such exceptional talent, you are fully qualified to become a candidate god of destruction for Universe 7. Beerus looked at Gran, his expression suddenly turning serious. What did you say? Within Universe 7, Beerus had never discussed anything with anyone so politely, which shows how much he valued Gran. What else can I say? Of course I don't want to. Gran was extremely unwilling, but he dared not say it aloud, shaking his head and saying, I'm sorry, Lord Beerus, I. When Beerus heard the words I'm sorry, his eyes turned icy cold. Kid, I've never been so polite to anyone when discussing anything with them before. Don't be ungrateful. This is the kind of swagger a god of destruction should have. No one dares to disobey Beerus when he wants to do something. If so, the grass on his grave would definitely be half a meter high. You can ask King Vegeta if you don't believe me. A murderous aura permeated the air. Gran felt as if he had fallen into an ice cave, and the chilling killing intent made him tremble. He knew his refusal would infuriate Beerus, and he had already planned his escape route. If Beerus tries to sabotage him, he'll just have to pull out his secret stash of instant noodles. Then, using the excuse of the average human level, he killed himself, which would certainly be a loss for the 7th universe. With a two-pronged approach, Beerus should give up. Would you dare to gamble? The opponent is a capricious god of destruction, and the strongest one at that. Are you really willing to gamble? Lord Beerus, I agree. In the end, Gran didn't dare to gamble. His little face fell, he really had no other choice. Haha, you're smart to back down. Beerus, however, was delighted. He glanced at Weiss. Weiss smiled and waved his staff. The next second, little Glenn was instantly dressed in an ancient Egyptian-style outfit. Sleeveless robe, gold armlet, sapphire necklace. Gran's outfit is exactly the same as Beerus's. On this day, Universe 7 has a candidate for God of Destruction, a cause for universal celebration. Crash! Sacred music resounded throughout the entire 7th universe. Meanwhile, in the world of the Supreme Kai, Supreme Kai Shin and Jet returned to this place. Supreme Kai Shin said gravely, "Strange, just a short while ago, I clearly sensed a strong aura of destruction, but how did it disappear?" Jet shook his head, "I don't know either. I also thought it was Majin Bu breaking the seal." Sudden, a sacred melody resounded throughout the realm of the Supreme Kai. What happened? The expressions of King Kai and Shin suddenly changed. The Supreme Kai sword atop the stone pillar in the center of the lake suddenly trembled, and the old Kai inside exclaimed in disbelief. "He's a candidate for God of Destruction? That's unbelievable. With that skinny, lazy guy like him, why would he take on an apprentice?" North Pole King. King Kai was huddled in a small house, trembling with fear. He had noticed the commotion caused by Beerus's awakening earlier, and he was afraid that Beerus would come and destroy his North Kai planet again. But the next second, sacred music rang out. What's going on? King Kai's eyes widened, and he quickly ran out of the house to look at the sky. The sacred music continued, but unlike old Kai, North Kai was not as knowledgeable and understood what this meant. The palace of the king. The king of all things, who was playing the game Eliminate Stars, raised his eyes briefly, then quickly lowered them again. The high priest beside him squinted, his gaze fixed on the 7th universe. Chapter 12. Destroy the God Realm. I never expected to wake up to find myself with such a disciple. Beerus laughed heartily by the lake. It was hard not to be in a good mood after recruiting a monster like Gran as a candidate god of destruction. Whis rolled his eyes. Seeing Beerus so happy, he thought the other person had become his disciple voluntarily, but it turned out it was forced. But... oh ho ho! Weiss also laughed loudly. Gran had become a candidate god of destruction, and he was now a member of the god of destruction realm. That means I'll be able to enjoy Glenn's delicious food from now on. It's hard not to be happy. Unlike Weiss, he is different. Little Gran looked on with a sorrowful expression. He stared at his tiny body dressed in the god of destruction costume. What a blunder! He only came to the realm of the gods of destruction wanting Whis to teach him cultivation. Who could have imagined that Beerus would be awakened by the noise of his cultivation? Who would have thought that Beerus would be interested in his talent? What do we do now? If Beerus were to die by accident, or if Supreme Kai Shin were to die, he would have to become the new god of destruction. That would link his life to the life of the new Supreme Kai. What are we going to do? You brat, aren't you happy to be a candidate god of destruction for Universe 7? Beerus grabbed Gran by the neck and lifted him up in front of him. Gran looked at him, his face contorted in distress. Lord Beerus, is there any way to save the lives of us gods of destruction? What's the meaning? Beerus was taken aback. Whis suddenly realized, you mean the issue of the god of destruction's life being linked to the Supreme Kai's? What? You actually know this? Beerus was horrified. Weiss didn't seem to feel anything. This kid seemed to know a lot of secrets, so it was normal for him to know this not-so-secret about the god of destruction. Grant nodded, he looked as pitiful as could be. Beerus tossed him back to the ground, then belatedly remarked, "Looks like that's why you rejected me." Nonsense. If it weren't for this weakness of us gods of destruction, I'd love to become your apprentice. Little Gran became a candidate god of destruction, and he was no longer afraid of Beerus. His tone of voice had lost its previous respect. "You little brat." Beerus wasn't annoyed by Gran's tone. He sat down on the grass as well and chuckled, "I don't know how you found out about this, but you don't need to worry about the lives of us gods of destruction. Perhaps you don't know this, but as long as one Supreme Kai is alive, we gods of destruction will not die." Gran's lips twitched. Of course he knew this. He also knew that Beerus, out of fear of death, had directly sealed away the old Kaishan. Really? As long as we seal away one of the many Supreme Kais, we gods of destruction will never die. A flicker of reminiscence crossed Beerus's eyes. He wondered how the old man was doing now. Gran guessed Beerus would say this, and he said helplessly, "But what if the Supreme Kai you sealed away also dies? How is this possible? How could anyone break my seal? No one can break it. You have no idea how fragile your seal is." Soon, when Gohan and his father arrive in the God of Destruction world, old Kaishan will be released. Of course, Gran wouldn't say that. He tilted his round little head and looked up at the sky. "I mean, what if someone breaks your seal? Then, we'll leave our lives to fate." Beerus's face turned extremely ugly. This is the weakness of the God of Destruction. Even if he is the strongest God of Destruction, he cannot change this. Thinking of this, Beerus suddenly felt a little guilty. With Gran's talent, he would surpass him sooner or later. But he has now given it this weakness. Is there really no other way? Gran asked, unwilling to give up. Have. Weiss suddenly spoke. Beerus and Gran were instantly overjoyed, exclaiming in unison, "What's the plan?" Weiss chuckled, "Rules are meant to be broken. When you are strong enough, you will naturally be able to break this binding rule." Beerus. What you said is as good as saying nothing at all. Besides, even you, an angel, cannot break that neutral rule, so how could we, mere destroyers, possibly manage it? Sudden. Gran stood up, his expression very serious. "I've made up my mind." Beerus and Whis exchanged glances, both seeing confusion in each other's eyes. "Lord Beerus has given me this weakness, and now that it's a fact." Gran paused abruptly, his eyes hardening with determination, "Then I will be the one to break this rule in the future." The rules were set by Zeno, and Gran's ultimate goal in coming to the Dragon Ball world was to punch Beerus and kick Zeno. Therefore, breaking the rules and kicking the Omni King are not contradictory at all. Boom! 7-year-old Grant was still quite short, but his ambitious words sent a shiver down the spines of Beerus and his companion. "I'm going back to my cultivation." Without turning his head, Gran returned to his original position. He wasn't very familiar with the selflessness state of mind, so he began to cultivate it again. Looking at Granner's small figure, Wiss's throat tightened. "Lord Beerus, it seems we have taken on an extraordinary apprentice." Beerus clenched his fist. This little guy. With Gran becoming the candidate for Destroyer of Universe 7, Beerus the god also stopped sleeping in. In particular, he gave Gran a weakness, and Beerus felt somewhat guilty towards him, so he also took on the responsibility of teaching Gran. Time flies, and half a year has passed just like that. During this time, Beerus and Weiss continued to teach Grant, and Grant finally mastered the ability to enter the half-self state of mind. Despite being in a state of semi-selflessness, it still gives Gran a sense of the beginnings of a state of complete freedom and ease. What Gran lacks now is basic strength, combat skills, and a more advanced combat awareness. After experiencing various battles, he will develop stronger physical instincts, enabling him to strike as fast as lightning. Then, by combining this with the half-self state of mind, Gran can enter the state of ultimate freedom, which is the first stage of ultimate freedom. As for achieving the ultimate freedom, that will have to wait until Gran fully enters the state of selflessness and cultivates his combat instincts to an even more profound level. During the 6 months they spent together, Beerus and Gran became very close. It turns out what Weiss said was true, this little guy's cooking skills are also top-notch. His food was absolutely worthy of the title the most delicious food in the entire universe, which made Beerus like the little guy even more. Given their current relationship, even if Grant defecated or urinated on his head, Beerus probably wouldn't be angry. "You brat, you really want to stand on my head and poop or pee?" Chapter 13. One day, Beerus was sleeping on a beach chair when he suddenly felt a ki blast hitting his head. He abruptly opened his eyes. Click! The energy blast was instantly dissipated by Beerus's destructive aura as soon as it approached him. Is all Lord Beerus knows how to do is use destructive power? If you're so capable, let's fight head-on. Gran appeared instantly next to Beerus and kicked Beerus's beach chair to pieces. Beerus naturally dodged Gran's attack. He looked at his tattered beach chair, his lips twitching. "Don't get angry. This is the disciple I chose, he's so talented, I can't get angry. Lord Beerus, come and fight me." Glenn beckoned to Beerus, who, not wanting to miss out on trouble, stretched out his little feet and stomped on the tattered beach chair twice. "You're itching for a beating, aren't you? Well, I'll grant your wish." Beerus could no longer restrain himself. After suppressing his power to the same level as Gran, he twisted his body and vanished instantly. Bang! Bang! A violent collision resounded overhead, and the aftershocks spread rapidly in all directions. "I'm seriously impressed by these two." While Weiss was having afternoon tea on the other side, a transparent protective shield with a diameter of 10 meters instantly formed around himself. "Lord Beerus, take this kick." Using the rebound force, Grant kicked Beerus counterclockwise. He had been in the realm of the god of destruction for a year and a half, and his combat power had naturally increased to 700,000. This kick contained all his power. "You're still too inexperienced." Beerus raised his hand and gently pushed to the side. Although he used the same level of strength, his push was extremely strange. There was no loud collision sound, Gran's force was somehow neutralized by an invisible force. This is combat skill, this is combat experience. You can't understand these things without experiencing countless battles. Beerus stepped back a short distance, one hand behind his back, seemingly intending to take on Gran with one hand. He laughed. "You should use the results of your year and a half of training." In Beerus's eyes, Gran had already cultivated a semi-selfless state of mind, although Gran's strength, combat reflexes, combat skills, combat awareness, these combat instincts were still very weak. However, by relying on a semi-selfless state of mind, he can still connect with his current physical instincts and still possess the rudiments of the ultimate form. That wretched Lord Beerus! Beerus's intention was for him to use the prototype of Ultra Instinct, while Beerus would use pure power. Grant gritted his teeth, his expression suddenly becoming incredibly calm. Buzz! A silver light appeared on him, his hair turned a pale silver, and an ethereal aura swept across the entire sky. Weiss, who was on the ground, put down his teacup, and his expression became serious. "Lord Beerus, be careful. Bring it on." The sky above stirred. A silver streak flashed across the sky as Gran launched the first attack. Punch, swing, clap, sweep kick, every movement is full of naturalness. Faced with Gran's rapid and relentless attacks, Beerus did not apply any buffs or use any rules, he simply responded with equal, pure power. Calling it a response is an understatement, it's more like feeding Gran a sparring match. Otherwise, even if Beerus used the same power, Gran would still be beaten to a pulp. The main problem is that Gran's physical instincts are still too weak, his physical instincts are not commensurate with his half-selfless state of mind. Within seconds, the two clashed hundreds of times, and the shockwaves from the collisions spread outwards in all directions. Fortunately, this is the realm of the gods of destruction, and Gran's power is simply insufficient to cause serious damage here. 20 seconds later, Gran's shooting speed began to slow down. It seems that with his current strength, he can only hold out for this long. Weiss, standing on the ground, shook his head. Ultimately, Gran has only mastered his own power and cultivated a state of semi-selflessness. In the year and a half since he came to the world of the god of destruction, he has not trained his power. His power is still too weak. It is already amazing that he can maintain this state for 20 seconds. That's enough, get out of here. Above, Beerus grabbed Gran's small fist with one hand and kicked it. Boom! Gran crashed onto the lake shore, instantly kicking up a cloud of dust. Cough cough cough. Gran stood up, clutching his stomach. Seeing Beerus land, he grumbled, "You're so powerful, why don't you go easy on me?" Beerus, his face darkening, retorted, "You're bad at the game and love to play. I'm not talking about anyone else, I'm talking about you. You, fine, you're not getting any dinner tonight. You dare." Beerus's forehead throbbed. This kid was incredibly talented, and his cooking skills were excellent, but he was also incredibly infuriating. "Okay, can you two stop arguing all the time?" Weiss walked over. Snort! Snort! The two, one big and one small, both crossed their arms and turned their heads away. Weiss. He found it a bit strange. The two of them were clearly inseparable, it wouldn't be an exaggeration to say they were practically inseparable. But why are they always arguing? Is this just their way of getting along? It's so strange. Gran, what did you feel after this battle? Weiss looked at the little guy in front of him. Gran glanced at Beerus, then said, "Although I've mastered the power, I still make too many unnecessary movements in battle, which wastes a lot of my energy." Weiss nodded, then asked, "Anything else?" "Ultimately, it's because I haven't fought enough. Compared to Lord Beerus, my combat awareness, skills, experience, are still too weak. At least you have some self-awareness." Beerus suddenly interrupted. Gran said irritably, "Lord Beerus, could you please shut up?" Weiss rubbed his forehead, and said helplessly, "All right, stop arguing. Is there anything else? And also, my strength is still too weak, it simply cannot sustain me in prolonged combat." Gran fell into deep thought. 6 months ago, he actually asked Weiss if he should start training his strength. But Weiss's reply was that he was not yet very familiar with the second level of mental state, and he needed to continue cultivating his mental state. Not bad, not bad. I didn't expect that after just a short battle with Lord Beerus, you would be able to see your own shortcomings. Weiss's tone was full of amazement. Beerus nodded slightly, this kid's comprehension was as freakish as ever. Weiss continued, "Your physical strength is indeed insufficient, but compared to your mental state is more important. That's why I'm giving you another 6 months to cultivate. Your mental state has reached a bottleneck, it's unlikely you'll see further improvement in the short term. It's time for you to start cultivating your physical strength." This was a plan that Weiss had prepared long ago. He first had Gran master his own power, and then had him cultivate his mental state. Then comes strength, combat skills, combat awareness, combat instinct, and finally, dimensions and rules. Of course, there are even deeper levels of cultivation, but that requires Gran to reach the level of Beerus. Then how should I cultivate my strength? Gran was very excited. Although his current strength is not bad, his combat power has reached 700,000. But a fighting power of 700,000 isn't even enough to challenge Frisia. Keep in mind, Frisia was only the first boss in the Dragon Ball storyline. It's very simple. Chapter 14. After saying that, Weiss waved his staff, and a bulky set of clothes instantly appeared on Gran's body. Bang! The moment he appeared in that bulky outfit, Gran was instantly pinned to the ground. He recognized it. In Dragon Ball Super, Whis dressed Goku and Vegeta in this kind of clothing when they went to the world of the gods of destruction for training. So heavy. Gran grimaced, feeling as if every cell in his body was locked in a gravitational shackle. At the same time, his strength was suppressed, and the sudden gravity made it difficult for him to stand up from the ground. Ha ha ha! Seeing the kid's miserable state, Beerus laughed heartily. Serves you right for PG me off all the time. Now you're in trouble, aren't you? Damn it, when I have time, I'll definitely make you a meal of stinky tofu. Grant lay on the ground, gritting his teeth. Whis and Beerus exchanged a glance. What kind of delicacy is this stinky tofu? If it's supposed to be delicious food, then why is it described as stinky? Beerus suddenly had a bad feeling. All right. Weiss changed the subject. You can wear this outfit for now. I'll create a training plan for you, and its gravity adjustment will automatically adjust based on your power increase, so don't worry. Gran suddenly noticed something was off about Weiss's tone. It sounded like he was saying these words before parting. What are you trying to do? Oh, you noticed. Whis glanced at Beerus, gesturing for him to speak. Beerus coughed twice, then said, You should know the duties of a god of destruction, right? What are the duties of a god of destruction? Within the universe, the god of destruction and the Supreme Kai are opposing entities. It's not that they are enemies, but rather that they cooperate to maintain balance in the universe. One governs destruction, the other governs creation. The god of destruction's duty is to destroy unsuitable planets and the ultimate evil in the universe. Gran, lying on the ground, frowned. He quickly realized what was happening. Lord Beerus, you mean you're going to destroy those useless planets? That's right. Beerus stood with his hands behind his back, gazing at the sky, and said calmly, The duty of the gods of destruction is to maintain the balance of the universe. When there are too many useless planets, it's time for us gods of destruction to intervene. Etc. Gran suddenly remembered something and said, I remember Lord Beerus, didn't you just visit planet Vegeta a few years ago? Didn't you regularly clean up useless planets in the universe back then? Why are you going again so soon? Beerus's face instantly turned as black as ink. Meanwhile, Weiss covered his mouth and chuckled to himself. He's laughing because Beerus was only focused on finding delicious food and the best pillow in the universe back then. Beerus didn't perform any cleanup mission at all. Seeing Beerus and Wiss's expressions, Gran, who was lying on the ground, also realized what was happening and immediately mocked them. No way, Lord Beerus. According to Whis, you're the strongest god of destruction. How can you be so lazy? As is customary, Beerus would always retaliate when he heard Gran's taunts. But Beerus's reaction was a bit strange. Instead of being angry, he looked rather amused. Mocking me? Beerus smirked. It seems someone's now a candidate god of destruction for Universe 7, which means you'll also be responsible for cleanup missions throughout the universe. Hiss! Grant gasped. It was really true. Before Gran could even utter a curse, Beerus and Whis transformed into streaks of multicolored light and soared into the sky, leaving behind a piercing laugh. Once you learn how to break the rules, all the missions in the universe will be yours, ha ha ha. Damn it! Gran struggled to raise his arm and slammed it into the ground. What bad luck to run into such a lazy destroyer. After a while, Gran sighed. What else could he do but continue cultivating? He was actually more fascinated by power than by cultivating his mental state. In other words, he is a scion, and scions are also known as a warrior race, with a desire for power that can be said to be ingrained in their genes. Gran is looking forward to his power breaking through to 3 million combat power. According to the original story, Sun Wukong's fighting power was 3 million when he first transformed into a super scion. Once his power reaches that level, perhaps he too can transform into a super scion. But it is said that to transform into a super scion, besides extreme anger, one also needs a sufficient number of S cells. Grant was unsure of the extent to which he had developed S cells. It seemed that these S cells could only proliferate in peacetime. Let's not think too much about it. Let's focus on building our strength first. Grant muttered something to himself, then began to get up from the ground. I have to say, the suit that Weiss got is terrifying. Although it doesn't cover his head is still affected by gravity. In addition, Gran also felt that the outfit had a healing effect. With the dual effects of gravity manipulation and healing, there's absolutely no need to worry about overcultivating. This is even more amazing than a gravity chamber. Vegeta, I'll come find you when I've completed